Okay, we will be solving simultaneous equations using the elimination method. There will be two parts to the elimination method. This is part one, and the second part involves, I guess, more complicated equations, but it's just as easy. So we'll get started. So using the elimination method, we have to eliminate one of the variables, either the x's or the y. And eliminate means to get rid of. That's why it's called the elimination method. Now, to do that, you have to look at the coefficients of x or the coefficients of y, and they have to be the same. So for example, if I look at the number in front of the x, so coefficient means the number in front of the variable, in this case x, I have 5 and I have 5. And is it possible for me to get them to equal 0? If I do a quick test on the side here, I've got a positive 5 and a positive 5. To make them equal 0, I will have to subtract them. So yes, it is possible for them to equal 0. Now let's see the coefficients of my y. I've got a positive 4 and I have a negative 4. And if I want them to equal 0, I have to decide, what am I going to put in here? Would I be putting addition or subtraction? If I put subtraction, then we would end up with two negatives, which would make a positive, and 4 plus 4 is 8, not 0. So in this case, we would have to, instead of subtracting, we would have to add these two 4s, and it will give us a 4 minus 4, which gives us a 0, because a negative and a positive make a negative, and 4 take away 4 is 0. Now with this question here, we have two options. We can either eliminate the x's, make them equal 0, or we can make the y's equal 0. Sometimes you only have one option, and sometimes you don't have any option, and that's where you have to change the coefficients to make them the same, and that will be in part 2. So you just pick what you want to eliminate. You will get the same solutions if you choose to do the x's or the y's first. I might just eliminate my x's. So now when doing this, you have to show clear working out. So let's label our equations. This is equation 1 and equation 2. So with every step that you do, you can write it in words or explain in a short way what you're actually doing. So I will be eliminating the x's, and to do that, I have to get equation 1 and take away equation 2. It's that simple. Like I said, write it in words if that makes more sense to you. But equation 1, take away equation 2, I would have 5, take away 5 to give me 0x or 0. So when doing elimination, we are now, I guess, combining these equations to get a third equation. So we either will be adding or subtracting the equations. So in this case, we are subtracting. So I'll just put that there to remind me I am subtracting everything. So you must subtract the 5x and the y's and the numbers out here, the constants. So let's start with the 5x. So 5x, take away 5x, yes, we know it's 0x. You don't have to write 0x, but I'm writing it here to show you that it's nothing, it's 0. So the x has been eliminated. Now we've got positive 4, take away a negative 4. Now you have to be very careful. So let's do a quick test. We've got positive 4. We are subtracting our equation. So take away a negative 4. What does that equal? Two negatives make a positive. So we end up having a positive 8 or 8y. Because I was saying positive 4y, take away a negative 4y. So we have positive 8y equals, and here we have 2 take away a negative 22. Do a quick test. I'll squeeze it up here. 2 take away a negative 22. Once again, what happens? Two negatives make a positive, and it equals 24. So we have 24. So the only mistake you can make, and a lot of students make this mistake, is with their negatives. That's why I want you to do little tests on the side, just to make sure you're not making that mistake. And just be careful, always look to the left of a variable or a number to see whether it is negative or positive. Now with our third equation, all we have to do now is to solve it. Because the x has been eliminated, we only have y, and we can solve this now because we have one variable, which is y, and just divide by 8, so 24 divided by 8 will leave me with 3. So y is equal to 3, and I have found my y points when these two lines cross over. So I found the first part. Now I have to find x, and to find x, it's exactly the same as what we did in substitution, and that is if y is equal to 3, substitute it into either equation 1 or equation 2 to find out what x is. You decide what equation you want to use. You will get the same answer for both. So let's just do that. So I have decided to substitute y equals 3 into equation 1. And I've explained what I am doing before I do it. So substitute y equals 3 into equation 1. Here's equation 1. It was 5x plus 4y equals 2. So let's sub it in. So we have 5x plus 4. Now instead of y, we always substitute with brackets. We have a 3. A positive 3 equals to 2. And remember, in between the brackets and a number, if there's no operation visible, it is times. And we're saying 4 times 3. And 4 times 3 is 12. So we have 12 equals 2. Our next step is, well, take away 12 and take away 12. So 5x will equal 2 take away 12, leaves us with negative 10. Finally, divide by 5 and divide by 5. And negative 10 divided by a positive 5 leaves us with negative 2. And there we go. We have found the x value for our point. So now we have to write our final statement. So please make sure when you have found the solution, you state what you have found. So therefore, the solution is negative 2 and y is 3. And that is the point where our two lines, imagine there are two lines, that is the one point they share, and they cross over at that one point. So it's important to write it as a point because that is a solution. And we know that solution means where do these two lines cross over simultaneously, which means at the same time. Now with question 2, you can't see the question, but I'll tell you what it is. It's asking us to solve these simultaneous equations using elimination. So once again, we have to look at which coefficients are the same, the x coefficients or the y coefficients. Let's have a look. In front of the x here, I've got a 2, and here I've got a 2, or negative 2, but it's still 2. And here I've got a 3 and a 1. Now, which coefficients can equal 0? Well, it's the x coefficients because they're the same. Forget about negatives or positives when checking for this. As long as you have the exact same number, then you can achieve 0 somehow. But 3 and 1, no matter what I do, whether I add or subtract, I can never get 0 because they're two different numbers. Now let's do our test. So we have minus 2 and a positive 2 to equal 0. Now, what do I put in the middle for these two numbers to equal 0? If I say subtraction, let's have a look. Minus 2 does not give me 0, it gives me negative 4. So I'm not going to subtract these two equations, I will have to add them. Minus 2 plus 2, yes, it gives me 0. So we've got equation 1 and equation 2, let's just label them. And we will be adding these equations to eliminate x. So equation 1 plus equation 2. Just write that, you can write it in words, but I'm explaining to the person looking at my working out that I'm adding equation 1 with equation 2, and in that case I will eliminate x. But we must do the same thing to the whole equation. So let's do that. So minus 2x plus 2x, yes, that's 0x. Minus 3 plus a positive 1. Minus 3 plus a positive 1 equals negative 2y. So we have minus 2y, which equals, now minus 9 plus 7, minus 9 plus 7 is a positive 7. That will leave me with minus 2. So I have a minus 2 here. So just do these tests on the side just to make sure you won't make a mistake with your negatives and positives. So the 0x, well, the x has been eliminated. We are left with minus 2y, which equals negative 2. So divide by minus 2, and cancel it out. Divide by minus 2. So y is equal to, two negatives make a positive, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. And we have found our y value for that point. And now we have to substitute this into either equation 1 or equation 2 to find out what x is. So let's do that. So now we are going to substitute when y is equal to 1 into equation 2. here's my equation 2. I just wrote it down quickly. And I've decided to use equation 2 because on our last question, I used equation 1 just for something different. So now let's sub it in. So we have 2x plus, it's a positive 1. I'll put it in brackets just in case, just so we don't forget that important step, and 7. And so the brackets don't have to be there in this case. So 2x plus 1 is what I have. So I can write it out again just so it looks a bit more clearer in case that bracket's confusing you. So the brackets in this case don't have to be there. So opposite of plus 1, we take away 1 and take away 1. 7 take away 1 is 6. Divide by 2, and 6 divided by 2, I'll just squeeze x up here. X is equal to positive 3. And we have found the x value. And now your final step is to explain what you have found and show that as a point. And just keep in mind, it's okay if you have fractions sometimes. You may have questions that involve getting an answer or solutions that are fractions. So we say, therefore, the solution is this point here. And once again, that is the point where if we drew our two lines on a graph, it is the one point that these two lines cross over, and that is our solution. So just remember what the solution actually means. Okay. So third question for this session, we have the following two linear equations. Remember, these two equations are straight lines. You can rearrange these into anything you want. If you wanted to rearrange them into the form of y equals mx plus c, you can. But the question is like this because they've got the x's next to each other or above each other, the y's, and then the constants on the end here. Sometimes the equations aren't given to you like this, and you might have to actually rearrange it to make it easier for yourself, to have the x's sort of above each other and the y's and the numbers here. So keep that in mind. And you should know how to rearrange an equation. It's pretty straightforward. All right, so with this question here, let's look at the coefficients of x. We've got a 1 here and a 3. Are those numbers exactly the same? No, they're not. So there is no way 3 and a 1 can ever become or equal 0. So let's look at the coefficients of y. We've got a 2 here and a 2 there. Forget about the negatives and positives. Because they're the same, in some way it is possible for them to equal 0. So now we'll do our test. So we've got a positive 2, we have a negative 2, and when we do our test, of course, the negative's important now. We want it to equal 0. What do we put in the middle? If we say take away, what happens? Two negatives will make a positive, and we don't want a positive because 2 plus 2 is just 4. So we have to add them. And 2 plus a negative 2, and positive and a negative make a negative. 2 minus 2 is 0. So we can eliminate the y's by subtracting our equations. Sorry, by adding our equations. So we're going to be adding it, okay? So it's important to do this test, but don't forget that I put to get a negative, I had to put a positive in here. So that's what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be adding these two equations. And we can say we've got equation 1 and equation 2. So we'll be explaining this step here. So equation 1 plus equation 2. That's it. So let's go. So we've got 1x plus a positive 3x. So 1 plus 3, that's nice and easy. We've got 4x. And we did this test here, but positive 2 plus a negative 2, we know it becomes takeaway, which equals 0. So you can write the 0y if you want to. So plus 0y equals 12 plus a positive 12. 12 plus 12 is just 24. Okay, so with this question, we have eliminated the y instead of the x. So the y isn't really there. So we really have 4x equals 24. Okay, and we can say this is equation 3. It's our third equation. And all we're going to do is solve for x now. Divide by 4, divide by 4. 24 divided by 4, x will be equal to 6. And I have found my x value for that point. And now all we have to do is substitute this into either equation 1 or equation 2 to find y, and we're done. So now our next step is we're going to substitute when x is equal to negative 6, sorry, x is equal to 6 into equation 1. Here's equation 1. I've just written it out again for you. So when x is 6, here's my x. Now, we should substitute with brackets, but I can see that I don't need to here. So we've got 6 plus 2y equals 12. And now all we're going to do is solve for y, and we're done. So our next step is, well, get rid of this 6 first. It's a positive 6, so take away 6 there. Take away 6 there. We have 2y equals 12 take away 6 is 6. And final step, divide by 2, y will be equal to 3. And I have found my y value for that point. And now our final step is to write our solution in point form. So therefore, the solution is when x is positive 6 and y is positive 3. And once again, that is where the two lines cross over and share that same point. So imagine I drew it on the graph. That would be that point right there. And those two lines are simultaneous at that point there. Okay, so all you got to do now is keep practicing. You can use some questions from your textbook to practice this skill. And just remember, please be careful with your negatives and do those tests on the side just to make sure you won't make a mistake. Because like I said, that's where a lot of students go wrong. It's with their negatives. Thank you.